Tuned into Recovery TV, the voice of hope, with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Discussions and information on addiction and mental health issues. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Good morning. My name is John Tassoni, and I am the host of Recovery TV. The numbers are getting bad. People are dying every day. We need to do something. People need to watch the show to get information to how to make the best decisions to move your life forward. Today I have a couple of guests today from Arcadia Healthcare, Dr. Matt and Ernesto Figueroa, who is the clinical director, and Dr. Matt is the medical director. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, John, for having us.
So, Woonsocket is a hotbed.
Sadly.
Doc, what are you seeing?
Well, I mean, we're seeing a couple of problems converge. We're seeing a lot of high-potency opioids flooding the area. I know it's everywhere else in Rhode Island and across southeastern Mass, but we've certainly got our share of it as well. By high potency, I'm talking about fentanyl, which is about 100 times more potent than heroin is. I'm talking about some analogs of fentanyl that we know of and we have found on different chemical tests. They aren't ones that necessarily are always seen or preferentially used in the population who use illicit drugs, but we see them in there, and their potencies can vary from time to time and from batch to batch, and so they're just as dangerous as the rest. And like everywhere else, we're seeing xylazine, which is a whole different animal, and it's causing a lot of deaths and a lot of problems.
And I'm hearing another zine that's coming onto the scene now. Can you expound on that, or do you know what I'm talking about?
The nitazines?
Yes, that's it.
So the nitazines are a class of drugs that were initially developed for pain control 50, 60 years ago. They really weren't chosen to be very effective, and they certainly saw some side effects, so they got sidelined. Nobody really used them medically at that point.
Right.
People have now rediscovered them because they're a very potent class of pain-killing medications. They're not exactly opiates, but they have the same effects. Fortunately for us in the community, they also respond to Narcan, the same as other opiates do. But because they are extremely potent and their batch-to-batch potency can be very variable as far as we're aware, it's something else that we are constantly competing against and having to deal with.
Now, we have all this fentanyl coming into Rhode Island. I've been asked many times, I'm not a clinician, so you guys will have to help me. Do the fentanyl test strips work?
Actually, they has been successful a little bit with that kind of things, and I think it really works. It really works just from fentanyl. So I guess that, we have been making a lot of distribution with Narcan and
Right,
also
right.
with the fentanyl, test strips, because we know that if people can, text what they take in, they might be able to be a little bit apprehend not to continue taking if they can notice something totally different in the products that they are in consumption.
Yeah, I was at an event last Thursday for the building trades, and they were talking about the fentanyl test strips and having them in their toolbox of these people that they want to train on the job sites. Obviously, the building trades right now is probably one of the hottest hit, both for alcohol and opioids because of the construction and getting hurt, getting operated on, the opioids, the whole bit. And that question came up, but I didn't know if I really got a straight answer. That's why I wanted to ask you that question. Do they work? Do you guys both think, or either one of you think, that this new thing of harm reduction, where you can go in and have the drug of your choice, go in and take it without being susceptible to fentanyl, or if you take the fentanyl, make sure it's measured to what you take. I mean, where do you guys see this?
Well,
I mean, I'm asking you this because you guys are Woonsocket right now is a hotbed.
Yeah. I think, the harm reduction center And for those people who really use drugs and to use drugs in a safe place when they gonna have people watching them exactly and be able, if it's something, develop, somebody gonna accept them not to, die for an overdose. I think it's right because the people who are using, well, the idea should be that people never use drugs.
Right.
But if they are using drugs and they can use that in a safe place, I'm for it. I'm for it because they're gonna use anyway. And I want rather than to use drugs in the safe place when they can be being watched by professionals that can accept them if they need it, than use drugs just on the streets or in the wood that they can die out of an overdose.
And I really want to piggyback on what Ernesto's saying, because when I am seeing patients and I'm doing intakes and I'm helping, I'll oftentimes ask if they're still actively using, what are they using, and do they have anyone around? And more people than I think you would want to hear say, no, I use by myself.
Yeah.
And the danger with that is that if they catch a batch that has carfentanil, or they catch some xylazine, or they catch some other potent analog that nobody even was aware would be in that supply, if nobody checks on them in time, that's where those overdose death numbers come from. So really the key for those facilities for me is safety and the quick availability for either a reversal with naloxone or access to treatment. Because the other part of this, and I've heard of this as well when I've spoken with colleagues around the country and who have had a little more experience and had touch with people in the Vancouver area where some of these consumption facilities have really started up, that it's a really important portal to enter into opioid use disorder treatment so that we can stop the cycle.
Yeah, that was the biggest, because I was involved in having discussions with a year and a half ago with the legislation, and I had indicated my concern. And the concern would be just do it right away. But I said, we got to do a pilot program, because you really can't take the word of another country that says, well, this works. You got to make sure it works in the United States. We're the first of its kind in the country. We've got to make sure it works here. If it works here, we're going to be saving a lot of people.
Yeah.
Not only here, but throughout the United States. And the detractors from doing something like this says, well, what are you doing? You're just handing out drugs so they can get high. No, we're not. We're using it to make sure they're using the right stuff, and then having conversations with them to get treatment. If you get treatment, there's probably a good chance if you catch them then, they're not going to use again. A good chance.
Yep.
But timing is everything. Thoughtfulness is everything.
Yes.
Your organization, obviously, in the hotbed of Woonsocket is very, very important. But I want to talk more about that when we come back, because you're not going to believe this. I got to pay the bills. You've been watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll be right back after these messages.
Now, back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We're here with Ernesto and Dr. Matt from Arcadia Healthcare. They're in Woonsocket, one of the hotbeds in Rhode Island right now. So, when you have folks, and I'm sure the line is not short in Woonsocket, the line is long. We have a lot of homeless individuals. We have a lot of people with a lot of problems. So, Doc, when you take an intake, if you could let my viewers know what it takes to go into an intake.
Okay. So the people that I see that are coming in for intakes are patients with either a moderate or severe opioid use disorder, causing a significant amount of disruption in their lives. Many of them have tried multiple times in multiple ways to stop their opioid use, and they simply cannot. Once we have established the severity of the opioid use disorder, they get a full history, physical examination in order to really determine where things are in relation to their opioid use disorder and what medications might be potentially helpful for them. We do have methadone. We offer treatment with buprenorphine as well. We're probably going to be bringing Vivitrol on at some point here in the near future. After that, once we've kind of assessed everything, medically, I come up with, along with the rest of the treatment team, an individualized plan of care for every single patient. There are some guidelines that are national guidelines from SAMHSA and from other organizations and within the state that we follow as far as places that we need to stay as far as dosing and dosing patterns and things like that. But everybody is in the same boat right now, and we all understand how severe the epidemic is becoming. And so within safety parameters, we are trying to be as aggressive as possible in titrating people's doses in order to get them to stop using the opioids. They will also, during the course of their intake, have some counseling pieces, because certainly in our centers, we believe in the importance of counseling and supportive therapy as part of the overall treatment. Really, the medications help to stabilize somebody's withdrawal symptoms and provide them enough comfort so that they can really focus on, from a counseling perspective and a learning and behavior perspective, what they're going to need to do in order to continue with their recovery for the rest of their lives. Even, as I like to say, once they have left me at the door and gone off forever, and I'll see you in the store.
You know, that's one of the things too. I have quite a few conversations with the healthcare providers, not giving the folks enough time in residential treatment or outpatient treatment. There's always a battle, and then when you call to get an extension on someone, you're not even talking to somebody in Rhode Island. You're talking to somebody in another country, and the only words that they know in English is no. And that's unfortunate, because you have somebody out of the country making the decision for your well-being. That doesn't make any sense to me. Now, the other question I have for you is that, are you seeing more and more marijuana in your facilities, methamphetamines in your facilities, and I know you're seeing a lot more alcohol in your facilities, because that seems to be, I don't want to say the drug of choice, but the choice of a lot of people right now is alcohol.
We're seeing a lot of other substances coming along.
Yeah.
We certainly see a fair amount of marijuana. It's a little bit of a different place to be, though, because when I'm looking kind of at the pantheon of illicit drugs and psychoactive substances, and I have to, as we have in these last few years during the pandemic, had to think about what are the things that are the most dangerous. THC is on there, but like some other substances, it really depends on how somebody uses it.
Right.
We're certainly seeing more of it with legalization, but it's something that we remark, and a lot of times I will be sure that people are using sources and supplies that can be quality controlled and that aren't subject to tainting.
Do you ask that question?
I do. I ask if they get it from a dispensary, or if they grow their own, or if they get it off the street, because there certainly was a time several months ago where that's where I would see people who were stable in treatment, and they said, I just used some marijuana, and then they pop for cocaine, they pop for methamphetamines, they pop for fentanyl, and they say, I didn't use that. Well, it's in there somehow, and that sometimes is how. We're seeing a lot of alcohol. We're really seeing methamphetamine creeping in. Especially with how adulterated the drug supply is becoming. There's all sorts of, like we talked about before, dangerous cuts and things that are being put in to try to change what the user's experience would be, and we're certainly seeing meth creep in now.
Ernesto, as the clinical director, and I know you're relatively new to the clinical director spot, did you ever think it would be this bad.
You don't know exactly what's going on in the community until you're getting into, the communities and you see exactly what's going on. For many people, they are oblivious about the opioid use in the state of Rhode Island because they are not involved in that particular field. When you dive into the field is when you realize exactly the need and the people who are in need of helps in the communities. It is crazy. So one of the things that we have in Arcadia is that we tailor-made the treatment for each one of the patients. We are patients' favorites. We try to, have a patient with the treatment plans and when we follow through with that, we have arrays of specialists, nurses, doctors, clinicians, just to follow through with that. We have number of cases that I can mention to you, successful cases that today, those people, they went to the treatment process in Arcadia, and day to day, they are in the community helping as a productive people in the communities.
Oh yeah, I think, and as we've spoken before, when people go through this and they get out of it, they are the best clinicians because they know how you feel when you go in to get assessed. They know how you feel when you're in recovery. They know how you feel when you're in withdrawals. They know that. What the problem is we don't have enough money to pay them. We're going to take a break, and I want to talk about that when we come back. You're watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. We'll be right back with Arcadia Health.
And now, back to Recovery TV with your host, John J. Tassoni Jr. Recovery TV is made possible by our supporting sponsors and our title sponsor, AdCare. Now, here's John and today's guest.
Welcome back to Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. Arcadia Healthcare is in the house. Dr. Matt and Esto, thank you both for joining me today. And they're both from Woonsocket, their facility. It's one of the hotbeds in Rhode Island right now, and thank you for what you do, because if you weren't there, we'd be losing more. We'd be absolutely losing more. And it goes hand in hand, too, with homelessness. People get frustrated. They can't get housing. They can't get jobs. But I look at it this way. If the insurance companies were smart, instead of putting their names on race cars and billboards and everything else, they would spend more money on treatment and get these people to become productive citizens again and get off the substances that they use, whether it's alcohol, opioids, or everything, and become productive citizens again, back in the workforce. We wouldn't have a workforce shortage. We have so many people that are hooked right now, so many people. But those people are not given a chance. But for you guys, reaching out, taking them from the street, helping them get their meds, get straightened out, jobs, the whole bit. But
and also we have a lot of support from the community. So community had to, be able to make a lot of referrals to us. There's a lot of people that are on the street right now, and they visit those organizations. For example, now in Woonsocket. And those people have to make a referral, bring those people to treatments. We're gonna really create a treatment program for them, and they can really have the path to be productive, human being in the societies. But we need to get them to treatment.
Now you guys are not only Woonsocket. Where else are
We
you?
have also, Arcadia has another, clinics down in Providence, in South Providence, in 66 Pavilion Ave in South Providence, which also provides same type of services that we provide in Woonsocket.
Well, thank you for what you do. You've been watching Recovery TV, and I'm your host, John Tassoni. You've been here with Arcadia Healthcare, and we'll see you next week. Join us.